So, welcome again to another of our podcasts, Builders of Bhutan, in which we talk to people who have helped the kings of Bhutan build the Bhutan we have today and have seen the development of the kingdom over the last 4 decades. And today I'm very happy to be with a very distinguished former diplomat, civil servant, minister, and also author, namely Lyonpo Om Pradhan. And I'm hoping, Lyonpo, that you'll tell us a little bit about where you came from, where you got to, and a few things that you did. Mm-hmm. So, Lyonpo, can I begin by asking about your childhood and family background?
Yes. Well, Sir Michael, I'm extremely happy to be able to do this podcast with you. I think there are a lot of things we old people can share with the younger generation. It's very pertinent that the younger generation should also know about the past.
Indeed.
Yes. So as far as I am concerned, my whole life has been in the service of the king and country. And this followed from the service that my father rendered to His Majesty the King, to Bhutan, and to the development of the country. I believe he started his service way back in 1911 or something like that.
This is your father?
My father.
Right.
And I have no writings as such on my father. Unfortunately, there are very few photographs that one could show because we had no cameras in those days.
Indeed. Yes.
And the few photographs that were taken were by delegations. The British, when they came to Bhutan, they took a few photographs of our royal family.
Right.
And there were other photographs taken by some Indians. And I must say, one of the photographers was Mr. Hing's family, Mr. M.W. Hing's family.
I remember Hing.
And the reason is because he had a camera in Kunsuling,
right,
when others didn't have. So I have a number of photographs about my father and in respect of other Bhutanese officials, like the Prime Minister and His Majesty,
and this
Majesty
is
Third King.
The first Prime Minister, Linchen Jigme Dorji.
Yes, Linchen Jigme Dorji. So I have tried to gather some information about the work of my father. And the first one which I heard about was from Commissioner Rinchen Dorji, who passed away recently in Nepal. And he told me that around, I think, 1917 or so, the British had invited His Majesty, the second Druk to attend a meeting with the Prince of Wales, somewhere in Calcutta.
Right, the old Prince of Wales.
Yes, so His Majesty was invited. Now the problem was that His Majesty had to come down from Wangdichuling, Bumtang and Tongsa, down to Gelefu, which in those days did not have the name Gelefu. It was still known as Hatisar.
Right.
And the same name was on the other side of India. So His Majesty had to come all the way down. And an arrangement had to be made from Hatisar, that is Gelefu, to the railway station on the Indian side from where the British would receive His Majesty and then escort him to Calcutta. So one of the persons responsible for making the arrangements for His Majesty in Gelefu happened to be my father.
Right.
And he was deputed by Bhutan House in Kalimpong.
Right.
He was deputed saying that you make all these arrangements. So my father went to Gelefu. Very few resources. We had only one truck in Gelefu. And the arrangements were made there. Then His Majesty came down from Tongsa to Gelefu, camped in Hathisar area, the Gelefu area. And then His Majesty suddenly realized that he couldn't go in a truck to Jalpaiguri, you see, railway station. So a car was supposed to, I believe, come from Bhutan House. But in those days, there were so many obstacles between Kalimpong and Bhutan.
Really?
There were no bridges
Right.
on the Ai River. The roads were very poor. You had to depend on some tea garden roads, which would not always be accessible.
Yeah.
So the vehicle did not arrive. So His Majesty,
And by His Majesty, we're talking about
second king
the
of
second
Bhutan.
king. Yes.
Yeah, His Majesty
Yes.
Jimmy Wancho.
Yes.
So he summoned my father. He said, go find a vehicle. Now in those days,
Shit.
Gelefu and all these areas was pure jungle.
That's right.
Okay,
Yes.
there were no dealers of vehicles. So the only way my father could try to get a vehicle was to find someone on the Indian side who had a vehicle,
Had a vehicle.
and either buy it or rent it or beg him to give it. So he carried a stash of cash, went across to the Assam side, and I heard that he literally sat on the road waiting for vehicles to pass. And to his good fortune, one contractor came whom he happened to know. So he begged him, please take whatever money I have, but give me this vehicle because I have to
Yes.
place it, in the presence of His Majesty. So finally he got this vehicle and he came to Gelefu with this vehicle and, presented it to His Majesty. And Commissioner Rinchen, he was telling me that the second king would always, look out for my father, saying, "Ngegi Julendra gate mose." Where is my Julendra? So that is the first incident of
Right.
what I gathered my father's service. Then the second one I heard very recently from our great historian, Tsiringtashi.
Right.
Tsiringtashi. He sent me an article about how the second king ordered arms and ammunition from the British.
Right. That's right. Yes.
Some 100 303 rifles, some guns, etc. Now the order was placed, and I think Bhutan House was made responsible for paying for this. They had to pay for it. But the problem was, how do you transport it to Bhutan? There were no roads,
No roads.
nothing.
Yes.
So again, my father was instructed to receive the consignment in Rangia station. And the address given to the British was, it's given in the article, His Majesty the King of Bhutan, Bhutan, care of Babu J.B. Pradhan, Rangia station. So he had to receive these weapons and ammunition. I don't know how he transported it all the way to Tongsa.
By hand, by
he must have used bullock carts.
Yes.
He must have used some trucks, if available, from the tea gardens. He must have used, labor. Yeah. And finally got it to Gelefu and then, Hathisar, and then by, people carrying it on backs up to, and horses to Tongsa and Bumthang. So this is the second incident where I found out what my father was doing. Then the third one was in 1955. I saw one office order issued by Prime Minister Jigme Dorji saying that Commissioner J.B. Pradhan will be completely in charge of the Southern Bhutan administration,
Right.
and all the officers he should sort of report to him, and he will inspect them or something like that. I don't know why I saw that order. And then again in 1962, we have a very clear report when John Kenneth Galbraith.
Galbraith, yes.
Yeah, he was ambassador in Delhi.
Yes.
And he expressed a desire to come to Bhutan. Okay?
Right.
He didn't realize that there were no roads to Bhutan. There were no air, nothing. So then Prime Minister Jigme Dorji, I think in consultation with His Majesty the King, they decided that now he can't come to Thimphu or Paro with the time frame that he had. So let us give him a sort of a holiday, a reception in the Manas Game Sanctuary.
Wonderful. Yes.
That was the thing.
Yes.
So then my father, since he was in charge of the Southern Bhutan administration, he was instructed to make preparations, receive Galbraith, and entertain him there.
Right.
Okay. So it was easier said than done. So my father went to Manas, no houses,
Right.
okay, to put up Galbraith. So he mobilized some Sachops, labor and all the Sachops, and built all these bamboo huts,
Right.
okay, for the reception of the American ambassador. The bamboo huts were built, and Galbraith came there with a host of people. I believe there was an actress also. And then the problem with Galbraith was he was a very tall man, 7 feet something. So the dilemma was to make a bed which would fit. So they had to make a bed to fit Galbraith and his wife, I guess. And Galbraith came there with a lot of reporters, and this is how we get a very good view of what happened there. A lot of photographs were taken, and the Sun newspaper from the US wrote a huge article. Galbraith himself wrote a book on the ambassador's journal.
Right.
He wrote a book, and all these articles are reflected in his book. And there he writes, I don't know, they must have had a misconception. They show my father with all these Sachops around him, and the sons, Galbraith calls him a wise old man, and says that this person is responsible for 3/4 of His Majesty's subjects. That's what the son, not really, I don't think it's really true, but I think they wanted to sort of dramatize it.
Yes.
3/4, and all pictures are there. And I remember he presented my father with a Zenith radio, those days. The Zenith radio, which, we had never seen in this part of the world.
Right.
And after that, I believe that Galbraith managed to go and see the late Prime Minister and Rani Cheni in Kalimpong, I believe, later on. But he never came to Bhutan as such, except Manas.
Oh, right, except Manas.
He never came,
Right.
Because we didn't have roads, nothing. So this is another incident where...
And what year was this?
1962.
62, gosh.
1962, yeah. And there are a lot of pictures and a lot of writings by by the Sun newspaper of USA.
And J.K. Galbraith, of course, was very important in developing India-US relations.
Yes. And it so happened that many, many years later, Her Majesty Ajit Sangye Chudin was visiting Boston.
Right.
And I happened to be the ambassador in New York. So I accompanied Her Majesty to Boston. And there we met Galbraith again. A few years before he passed away. We met him in his residence. And so this was another incident where my father's service somehow is I can learn about.
Wonderful, yes.
And then the other one was, then we come to Third King's time. During Third King's time, His Majesty, realized that the Deotang Samdzongar area, which had been acquired by the British earlier.
Indeed, after the Dua War.
Yeah, after the Dua War, 1864-65, and had been handed back to Bhutan after 1949 treaty.
Yes,
after 1949 treaty with independent India. And so this was a sort of fresh area. And His Majesty wanted my father to settle down in Deotang.
Right.
Yeah. So then I saw one kasho written by Geldin Tille, Lyonpo Jimmy's father, conveying His Majesty's orders.
And Lyonpo Jigme Tinley's father was secretary
Yeah,
for the king.
that time. He wrote a letter saying that His Majesty would like my father to settle down in Deotang. I think he wanted to establish something there.
Right.
So in the kasho, addressed to that time Zhongor Zongpen,
Right.
saying that His Majesty desires that Commissioner J.B. Pradhan be given land adequate to plant 2,000 orange trees, to start a dairy farm, and to build his own residence in Deotang. I still have the kasho.
Right.
But I don't have the land.
You don't have the land, dear.
I have the kasho, I don't have the land.
So did your father build a residence or not?
I think he made no attempt to do that.
Right.
I think he made no attempt. So, but that is another incident where I see the outcome of my father's service.
Well, yes.
Then the final indication of what he was doing was in 1964. At that time, the late Prime Minister, Prime Minister Jimmy Doji was assassinated in Bhutan.
Yes.
And there was chaos in the country. People had left, some had gone to Nepal, had left. His Majesty was in Switzerland at that time, undergoing
with heart
treatment.
Problems, yes.
So from Switzerland, His Majesty had to quickly take charge of all this chaos that was going on. So immediately His Majesty appointed His Royal Highness Namgyal Wangchuk Paropenlop as the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Army. Okay, he was appointed.
Yes.
This is a press release, so it's in writing, press release. And then my father, who was in a retired state and was known as advisor to Southern Bhutan, but retired.
Right.
So His Majesty reappointed him as the in charge of Southern Bhutan, Commissioner Southern Bhutan, take over. And he mentions that he has had a lot of experience, so he'll easily handle the task. So he was asked to take over, after to make sure law and order was maintained.
Because there were big problems after that assassination.
Yes.
I think was it Nari Rostamji who wrote the book Dragon Kingdom in Crisis.
Yes.
And it was a very, very difficult time.
Yes.
So your father took over Southern
Bhutan. I don't know how he took over, but he's supposed to have ensured that there was no problems.
Right.
So this is what happened. So that is another indication of what my father was up to. Then after that, he again retired. In the meantime, what happened was, after 1964-65, the third king of Bhutan. Now we must realize that as far as Southern Bhutan was concerned, the administrative setup in Southern Bhutan was different from Northern Bhutan.
Right.
So administrative setup. And this was to take care of a number of issues. Number one, you had mostly a Nepali-speaking population in Southern Bhutan. Therefore, you could not use Dzongkha or any other language. And secondly, the responsibility of looking after this part of Bhutan had been given to Raja Sonam Topge Doji in Kalimpong.
Right.
And before him, maybe his father Kaji Ugen Doji. And after Raja Sonam Topge Doji, the Prime Minister Jigme Doji inherited that role. But the administrator in southern Bhutan was my father.
Right.
And they could not, the southern Bhutan administrators had to be given designations which the local population understood.
Understood, yes.
And the British Indian population across the border understood. I mean, they could not understand what a Dzongda was,
or
Timpen was, or Dumpa was.
Yeah.
So the southern Bhutan administration, my father was designated as Commissioner Southern Bhutan.
Right.
Which later on they gave a Dzongkha title of Lotsam Chichap.
Right.
But it was Commissioner Southern Bhutan. And under him there were 2 deputy commissioners, rank of Dzongdas. They were rank of Dzongdas, Deputy Commissioner Samchi and Deputy Commissioner Tsirang. These 2 deputy commissioners, and under them there were sub-divisional officers or SDOs.
SDOs.
Yeah. So these people would not only handle the local administration, but they could deal with the administration across the border.
Right.
Because we had to deal with border issues, law and order issues, forest issues, capturing of elephant issues. That's what Hathis are. Capturing of elephant issues. Yes. So all these issues had to be dealt with. So you are not only dealing with the administration, but also the officials across the border.
Right.
And these people had to be conversant in English. Right. They had to be conversant in whatever local languages, Hindi or Bengali or Assamese, they had to be conversant. So the administration of southern Bhutan was quite different from northern Bhutan.
Right.
But in the 1970s, by that time, the Great Fourth had come onto the throne, and in the discussions in the National Assembly, they felt that we can't have 2 administrative systems in Bhutan. Let's have 1 administrative system. So because of this, and in view of the initiatives His Majesty took to, create greater unity within the country. Why should we have 2 different lists? Why should we have so many languages? So because of that, the Southern Bhutan administration and the Northern Bhutan administration was made one single system. So we had Dzongdas, we had Dumpas, Timpens, whatever. So it was made one. That's how we sort of unified the administration of the country. And gradually the commissioner's post. My father was succeeded by Commissioner Rinchin, then by Lyonpo Om and by Dasho Namtepenjo. These were the people who succeeded my father. But it was a post which was, above the Dzongdas, everything. So they did not want to have a separate office. So that was abolished during the Fourth King's time. Now, in the meantime, how I came into the government... I was
just going to say, Lyonpo, that's a wonderfully interesting story about your father.
Thank you.
And all the events, which many people will not know about. Now, let's move from your father to the son.
Yes. Now, what happened was...
Where did you go to school?
When I was, my father had this responsibility of going to Bhutan House in Kalimpong, for 2 reasons. One was to take the revenues of southern Bhutan and deposit it with Bhutan House.
In bags?
Yeah, they were there. I saw them actually. They were leather bags with all coins,
Yes.
With Indian coins. It was Indian British coins. And then these were put on the railways, taken to Siliguri, put on cars, and then we used to take it up to Bhutan House, deposited it there. And Bhutan House in turn would, account it to Wangdicheling Palace in Bumthang, to His Majesty. So, and then the reports of southern Bhutan, what was happening, the law and order situation, etc., had to be reported by my father to Raja St. Doji, Gongzim, Sonamtok Doji. The Raja title was given to him by the British.
That's right.
It was. His Bhutanese title was Gongzim. So then he would in turn apprise His Majesty and the court in Bhutan. So when this was happening, when I was of school age, about 6, 7, 8, 9, I accompanied my father because most Bhutanese students those days went to Kalimpong schools. So when I went there, I don't know, for some reason they put me in St. Joseph's Convent.
Oh,
in
convent.
Yeah, it was only small boys were accepted.
Right, that's right, yes. Which is very similar, Lyonpo, because when I was 6, I went to a convent boarding school which accepted boys up to the age of 10.
Yeah.
And I can remember one day asking the Mother Superior, why do you only accept boys up to 10? And I was so innocent.
So then I was put there. And then after about 2 years, I remember, I don't know, someone in Bhutan House said, don't put him in convent, send him to Dr. Graham's homes.
Right.
You know, he'll become sort of more tough if he's sent to Dr. Graham's home. So I was sent to Dr. Graham's homes. And there, to the shock of my life, I had to take off my shoes. I went barefoot. I was given just a khaki half pant, and and the food was really in short supply. Right. I think I was perpetually hungry, looks like. Then, but the school was very good. We had all these British teachers, I remember Mr. Duncan, who was the principal, and then our house teachers were all from England,
Right.
very strict. I received a few canings also.
Right.
Yeah. Then I was there for 4 years in Dr. Graham's homes. Right. And after that, for some reason, I don't know, my father took me to Guwahati, which is quite close to Samsung.
Yes.
And he put me in St. Mary's Convent.
Another convent.
Another convent. Okay, so I was there. Then after some time, the convent said, we don't accept after a certain age. So then my father said, okay, I'll send you to Don Bosco School in Guwahati.
Right, okay. Right.
Then I was sent to Don Bosco School as a day scholar. I remember cycling to school, you see. Okay. Then, my luck. In 62, the development wing had been established.
Yes.
And Limbodawa was director of education. Dasholampi was the secretary general for this thing. And they were touring and they came to Deuthang,
Right.
And I happened to be hanging around there. So they said that, they are looking for people to go to North Point and all this. So he's the ideal candidate, send him to North Point.
Right.
So in 62, I was taken to North Point.
Just by chance.
Just by chance.
Meeting, yes.
Yeah. I was taken to North Point, and suddenly, to my great surprise, this was a school where you wore suits. We were served by waiters with gloves.
Right.
We had forks and spoons. Okay. Of course, I didn't know how to use them. They had to train me how to use spoons.
Right.
So finally, I got into this school, and then I looked around, and there I saw the princes of Nepal.
That's right.
Then Dasho Kelden, Dasho Topge, Dasho Benji were all also hanging around, in the same school. Right. So this was a school for the elite,
That's very much so, yes.
Yeah. So I was thrown into that, you see. And of course, for many years, my father thought that was inappropriate for our status, we should not be there. But somehow, by chance, I got there. Yeah. So I did my senior Cambridge.
Right.
I finished in 1965.
Right.
And after that, again, I was wondering what to do. And it was winter of 1965. My father was again involved with the preparation for His Majesty's annual Southern Bhutan visit. That was the third king, So the third king used to come to Manas Game Sanctuary, hunting expeditions, then to Kalapani, then to Gelefu, all these places. And then by that time, Dantak had also, Indian Border Roads Organization, Dantak, had also come into Bhutan,
Right.
65, and they were constructing roads. And they had a lot of these guest houses and camps in Samdzongkar, in Gelefu. And on the Bhutan side, we had no guest houses worth the name. So His Majesty was staying in these Dantak camps in Lobesa, in Gelefu. And at that time, even the Indian political officer for Bhutan and Sikkim, who was stationed in Gangtok, came to call on His Majesty. And well, I happened to be there with my father, sort of hanging around. Then I think His Majesty must have noticed me. So I was summoned in the presence of His Majesty, saying that your education now is enough. You be your father's assistant.
Right.
Okay. So I think promptly my father was not keen to have me as an assistant. So somehow I think His Majesty learnt about that, and he said that you go and do the Indian administrative course for 1 year.
Right.
And Bahadur Singh, the political officer, is coming here. I will tell him to arrange it.
Right.
So Bahadur Singh came there, and His Majesty instructed him to make this arrangement. So a seat was found for me in Mussoorie in India, where the IAS course takes place. So I was, for me, I was just flowing with the, river, as it were. So then when I came to Samdzongkar, suddenly again, Parapenlap, who was the deputy commander-in-chief of the army,
That's right.
he was in Samdzongkar on a visit. And of course, my father had to go and pay his respects to him. And I was tagging along. So His Royal Highness noticed me and he said, "What are you doing?" So I said, "Sir, I'm about to do the Indian administrative course." And he said, no, I did that Indian administrative course and I didn't find it very useful. You go to college, St. Stephen's College in Delhi. So I said that, and he said, I will inform His Majesty that, it was better to do this. And immediately a telegram went to the political officer in Gangtok and to the education officer, Bhutan House, Kalimpong. And within 2 days, I was asked to report to New Delhi.
Right. Had you been to Delhi before?
No, I've never been. So I said, how do you go to Delhi anyway? So they said, you have a good, go to Guwahati, fly to Calcutta to Delhi. And then I didn't know where, just take a taxi and say, I'm going to St. Stephen's College.
Right.
That's how I landed up,
Yes.
There. And then again, in Delhi, I was there in college from 1966 to 69. Then around 67 or 68, His Majesty the King made a state visit to India. He made a state visit to India. And I don't know. I received a telegram. Those days there were no messages, no phones, nothing. It's just telegram saying that report to Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Yes.
I said, okay. No clue. I have no clue what all this is. So then I went to Rashtrapati Bhavan. I don't have a go. I don't have a suit. I don't have a tie. I just have a shirt and a pant. That's all. So with that, I went to Rashtrapati Bhavan. I don't know how they let me in those days. So then I reported to Rashtrapati Bhavan, and there was old Lyonpo Sangye, Benjo. He was with His Majesty.
Yes.
There was Dr. Topge, Lyonpo Topge, and Dashu Benji was there also.
Right.
He was Paro Timpen, I think, at that time.
Right.
So he was also there. So I, went there. So I was instructed by Dr. Topji saying that now you stand in the corridor and, pay your respects to His Majesty when His Majesty passes by.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only way. Okay. So I said, okay. So in my shirt and pant, I was there standing there. So finally, His Majesty came there. And he came with Mrs. Indira Gandhi and everyone. So I did my chawang. His Majesty, recognized me. I was introduced to Indira Gandhi also.
Right.
And after that, I was instructed that as soon as I finished my college, I should report to Thimphu. report to Thimphu after your college. So that was the command that I received. So on July 15th, 1969, I finished my college, came to Samzongar quickly to, tell my father that this was the case, and took his old jeep and came to Thimphu. And I stayed I remember with Gunglin Lamdoji, I stayed with him.
Right.
Yeah. And
in the house above Pelkil School now?
not above it.
Oh, no, it was near the Zong.
No. He was in Lung Tin Phu.
Lung Tin Phu,
Yeah,
right.
that was a guest house, I think.
Right.
Yeah, Lung Tin Phu. Then I stayed there. Then I had to go to the Zong. Those days, in order to get an audience, you go at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Okay, so I went at 5 o'clock, number of days. I was not able to get an audience. Who would report me?
Yes.
So finally, I decided that I'll go and see, I saw Parapanlop, so I said I'll go and pay my respects to His Highness and inform him that I've come here. So I went to His Highness's office, was in the Zong. So I went and paid my respects. So he said, don't worry, Om, I will make the reports. My savior.
Right.
So then after that, within a few days, I know that a cabinet meeting took place. And after the cabinet meeting, those days you had these old black phones, telephones.
That's right, yes, which I remember so well.
So I was
yes.
in Lung Tin Phu. Suddenly I received a call, Parapanlap. He said, you will join me, okay? And, you report to my office. So I said, yes, I'll do that. So I reported to the office, and His Royal Highness gave the orders to his secretary, who was Mr. S. Jamtso, who was from Samti, I believe, Jamtso. And then Jamtso issued my first office order that Om Pradhan has joined. His pay shall be dash. DNS allowance shall be dash, signed Tenji Limpo.
Tenji Limpo, that's right, yes.
So His Royal Highness filled the gaps. Okay, his pay will be 280 and his DNS allowance will be 30. So the total was 310.
Nultums.
New terms, but in Tikchungs. It's
in
all
Tikchungs.
in
I
Tikchungs.
remember Tikchungs.
Yeah. We used to receive
That's
our pay
right.
in Tikchungs.
Yes.
So I got my 310, and
which would be the equivalent, if I recall, Tikchung was half a rupee.
Half a rupee, yes.
I got paid in Tikchungs in 1971. Yes.
Till
So
70.
your pay was round about 200 rupees.
No, it was total of 310 rupees.
310
so I would
rupees.
get 620 Tikchungs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what I did with it. I know I gave it to my wife, and I don't know what she did with it.
Right.
But that is how I joined the government service. And
that was in the Ministry of Trade, was it?
Those days it was known as Trade, Industries and Forests.
Right.
Okay. But Parapanlop used to handle all other, like mines and minerals, anything to do with foreign affairs. Those days there was no foreign ministry.
Right.
So anything to do. So that's how he went to the UN also in 71.
Right.
Yeah.
So for the opening of Bhutan's entry to the UN.
Yes.
There's that famous photograph
Yes.
below the flags.
Yes. So Parapanlop went, he was Minister for Trade, Industries and Forests, but he went, there was no foreign minister.
That's right.
So he went to represent. Lyonpo Dawa was then, when he went there, he was designated as Minister in charge of Foreign Affairs.
I recall very well calling on him in that capacity.
Minister in charge of Foreign Affairs. And then Lyonpo Sangye went as ambassador designate, permanent representative designate to the UN. Yeah. And a few other officers went with them. So that's how the UN mission was started. Then I joined the Trade Ministry, and I was so lucky to have worked under a boss like Parapanlop. And all my, I had all my, I think, achievements is directly because of Parupallu.
Right.
It's all directly because of Parupallu. And then, unfortunately, in 1971, the third king passed away in Nairobi.
That's right.
He passed away in Nairobi. And those days it was so difficult. The body was brought to Mumbai now. And then from there, flown by Indian Air Force. There were no airports as such in Bhutan. I mean, Paro was there, but it was not used. It was flown to Hashimara.
Right.
So the body of His Majesty, accompanied by the Crown Prince, the fourth king. And I was also there to one of the officials, to try to make arrangements. I was there to receive the body in Hashimara.
This was 1972, I think, wasn't it?
71.
Right.
71, His Majesty passed. And then the body was escorted to Phuntsholing.
Right.
And then next day to Thimphu, Linkana Palace.
Right.
It was brought there. And then cremation took place in Bhutan.
In Bhutan.
So I was, in a way, fortunate to be all there throughout, up to Bhutan, and even to carry the remains to the Chamkarchu River.
Right.
Okay, so in that way, I saw history as such
Happening.
yeah. Then the fourth king came to the throne, and His Majesty, of course, I remember the first meeting with His Majesty, Lyonpo, myself and Dashulam Pencho, three of us, we were there. And thank God Lyonpo was there, because he was the experienced person, you see.
Right.
And that's how it started. That's my career. I started like that.
Yes. As so often in Bhutan, some of it by pure chance.
It's pure
by
chance.
Being in the right place at the right time.
Could be, yes.
And the idea of career planning.
No, there was no career planning.
Career planning.
Absolutely no career.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Lyonpo,
Yes.
you started off like that, but now tell us a little bit about where you got to and your various steps and the various jobs you did.
Yes. No, as I said, I was very fortunate to be working under His Royal Highness Namgyal Wangchu. And His Royal Highness, gave me the responsibilities which would prove to be my experience in service. I mean, His Royal Highness would, I would represent His Royal Highness in various forums, from sometimes in the cabinet, sometimes in the National Assembly.
Right.
And then after that, when we got into the UN, I was going to attend UNCTAD, UNIDO, the Law of the Sea Conference, then all these, and Lyonpo seemed to have a lot of faith in me, and he used to say, okay, you go and attend this meeting,
Right.
you go. Though it had nothing to do directly with my work, but I used to attend all these
So what
meetings.
level were you in those days?
No, what happened was, again, this is also something which is very peculiar. It would not happen to anybody.
Right.
As I said, I joined as a trainee officer with 380 newtons. After 6 months, His Royal Highness said that now you will be the acting secretary in the ministry.
After 6 months?
Yeah, after 6 months, acting secretary in the ministry. So I didn't even realize what this post was, but suddenly I realized that it was quite an important post.
Right.
So I used to also sometimes serve as His Royal Highness's secretary. I used to write his letters and all this. But I realized that what His Royal Highness was posting me as was a secretary in a ministry.
Right.
So after 6 months, I was acting secretary. Right. And I remained as acting secretary with all the authority of a secretary.
Secretary, indeed.
And I also didn't realize that being a acting secretary in His Royal Highness's ministry was a step up to even the other secretaries.
Right.
Because by virtue of his being
by virtue of the boss.
Yeah, by virtue of the boss.
Yes.
So I was there. Then in those days, Bhutan did not have any service rules, any pay scales, nothing. So a committee was set up, a financial committee was set up with the Home Minister and the Finance Minister as the chairman, co-chairman.
Right.
And all the people representing different ministries were actually Indian advisors. The
That's true,
financial
yes.
advisor, industry,
Yes, yes.
all were Indian advisors. Now there was a inherent problem in this committee because the two chairmen could not readily understand these other people. They could not understand the other people.
Right.
So the finance minister called me. He said, now you make sure that whatever we say and all is taken into account. I said, yes, sir, I'll do that. And you will be Chengachigi umze. In the monk body you have this umze.
Right.
That means, person who will sort of make sure everything is
That's right.
all.
Yes.
So I was designated as umze. And the first pay scales were made by that committee.
Right.
Okay. And my pay from 380, it rose to 650.
Doubled.
Almost double. Okay. Then by that time again, Her Royal Highness Aji Sonam
Yes.
had come as the representative of His Majesty in the Ministry of Finance.
That's right.
And Her Royal Highness Aji Dechen Wongmo Wongchu was the representative of His Majesty in Development Ministry. And when Her Royal Highness came in, she issued the new Bhutanese currency notes.
The Notrum.
Yeah, the new
That's
term
right.
was issued
Yeah.
under her signature. It was all under Ajistonam's signature. So we had notes for the first time, I mean,
So people don't realize this. The Notrum is actually quite a new invention.
it's what, 72, 73?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, 71, 72. Yeah. So Aji issued the first new terms.
Yes. Right.
So we started receiving our pay in
Notes.
currency notes.
Right.
So this was, 72, 73, I think,
Yes.
Then after that, I continued, and since Bhutan has joined the UN, we had this, we had this opportunity to go abroad.
Right.
To go abroad. Now the problem of going abroad was not easy, because there was no Druk air.
That's right.
Okay, so we had to go down to Phuntsholing by road, from Phuntsholing to Bagdogra, from Bagdogra to Calcutta. Then when you reach Calcutta, we had to request the government of India to give us some foreign exchange from the Reserve Bank of India.
Right.
Okay, and they would give us the foreign exchange from Reserve Bank of India. And then we suddenly realized that we needed clothes. So we had to make some clothes, like a suit or something
suit,
like that,
yeah,
in Calcutta.
Right.
And
learn to tie a tie.
that I was familiar
you were
with
familiar from
North Point.
school.
Yeah,
Yes,
yes,
yes.
this I was quite familiar. And the other problem was that visas. We did not know much about visas. But thank God we had an established office in Calcutta.
Right.
The State Trading Corporation of Bhutan
That's right.
was established in
In
Calcutta.
Tivoli Court.
In Tivoli Court. And because of that, we had this at least assistance.
Right.
To help us
Right.
to sort of how to get a visa from the consuls generals. I remember my first visa was from the Japanese embassy, Then there were other things like making clothes. Sani and Sons, I think they made some suits for us. And then get some foreign exchange from Reserve Bank of India. Try to get additional amounts in the new market, black market in India. No, there was no other way.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's how we went abroad. And then my first UN meeting was in Santiago de Chile in 1972.
Right.
And I was sent from Bhutan. Lyonpo Penjo was our ambassador in New York.
Okay.
He was supposed to go as the leader. And Mr. A.N. Ram, who was an Indian diplomat who was assigned to Bhutan, he was supposed to be our advisor.
Right.
Okay. So I went from here, from New Delhi. I had no idea where I was going actually. So I went from New Delhi. I was put on an Air India plane to New York. So I went to New York, and I was told that someone from the Bhutan mission would receive me in New York airport. So I landed up in New York, and I was dazed actually, with New York.
Yes.
So I was waiting for someone to receive me. No one came. No one came. Then after that, I said that I must try to phone up. So I went, those days they had phone booths in New York with a lot of these phone books, huge
Telephone
phone books,
directories, that's right, yes.
And they had that. So I said, somewhere there must be Bhutan mission, you see. So, and by chance I got the Manhattan book. If I had got Queens or everything, I would have been So somehow I got the Manhattan book, and I, sort of went through this. I said, missions and diplomatic thing will be separate, obviously. So I got the Bhutan mission. I didn't know how to phone. I didn't know 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. I said, what is that? I've never seen phones like this. But again, those days in the airport, they had a booth which would help you to do this.
Traveler's aid.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I went to this lady. So, by that time my voice had dried up also. So I went to this lady and she said, okay, honey, go there. Okay, go to the booth, I'll phone for you. So she dialed for me. No one picked up the phone. Then suddenly I realized it was a Sunday. I realized it was Sunday. So then I said that now what to do? So then I knew that Mr. A.N. Ram was from from India. So I said the Indian mission would be open. I don't think they'll close down. Someone will pick up the phone. So I got the Indian mission number and phoned up the Indian mission. So I said that, can you please give me Mr. A.N. Ram's number? So this person who was attending the phone gave me the number. And I gave this to the lady, and she in turn rang up A.N. Ram. And A.N. Ram picked up the phone. Oh, he said, now, no use coming to the airport because it's too far away. So go outside, take a taxi, how to take a taxi. He taught me how to take a taxi. And come to this address, he gave me an address. So I took a taxi and went to A.N. Ram's place. Okay? And that's how I was found in New York.
When you think of today, when Bhutanese go off to Bangkok for a holiday, it was so different in those days.
So different. Yes.
And I think people today don't realize how different it was then.
Then I went there, and after some time, of course, we went to Santiago de Chile.
Right.
And those days, the conferences was, the third UNCTAD was for 6 weeks.
Right.
6 weeks in Chile.
Long time.
Yeah. With Limusangi, yes. So that was my first international...
Right. But then you became the permanent representative in New York.
That was later.
Right. So after that...
So I came back in 72. I attended a number of other conferences, we could call it not ESCAP, but eCafe.
Yes.
Those days. And I used to accompany Lyonpo and all this. So this was good training for me.
Right.
Then finally in 1980, end of 79, 80, His Majesty gave me a command to go to New York. 80 I went. So from 80 to 84, I was Bhutan's permanent representative in New York.
Right.
And after that, in 84, that's the time when I received a call from Lyonpo saying that you report to Thimphu and you have to go as ambassador of Bhutan to India.
Right.
And after that, you will, start the first border talks with China.
Ah.
So this is the thing. So immediately I packed up my things in New York and reported to Thimphu. I was given all the briefs on how to go to India and to China by Lyonpo. Again in a little bit of a daze actually. Then I went to New Delhi, presented my credentials to President Zail Singh and became ambassador to India. And within 15...
Was the Bhutan embassy that we have today, that was there then?
That was there, yes. Then in a few days, I was on my way to Beijing. And Beijing happened to be this trip happened to be the first ever official contact between Bhutan and China. First ever official contact. And I went to Beijing and we started the border negotiations.
And we're now in the 25th year?
Yeah. I think 25th. I did the first 3 plus the 5th one.
Right.
And on the 5th one was to finalize the principles for the border demarcation. So I did up to that much. And then after that, from Delhi, I was assigned back to the Ministry of Trade and Industries.
Right. But just to revert back a moment to the first visit to Beijing.
Yes.
The border talks were in fact the only contact, official contact between Bhutan and China.
Yes.
And so perhaps served an extra purpose above simple talking about the border.
Of course, yes.
Because it created a contact, the first ever contact.
In fact, I think that it was a very significant beginning of talks with China.
Right.
Because number one, it assured us that China recognized us as a sovereign country. Independent country, and that's how they treated us. Size doesn't matter, that's what they told us. Then the President and the Prime Minister of China also addressed, this confirmation to Bhutan, saying that we recognize Bhutan as a sovereign independent country, So these assurances coming from China was very significant for a small country like Bhutan. It was very significant. It made a lot of, I think, it sort of boosted our confidence in a way. So this is what happened. And after that, the Chinese delegation came here for the first time. I think they called on His Majesty, called on other ministers. So this was a very good contact. So, and this, these negotiations have carried on.
That's right.
So this is the only forum where actually Bhutan and China meet, I guess.
Indeed.
So it is a good thing. And, I think the borders have, there are problems, but basically remain peaceful for so long. So it's a good thing.
Which is quite remarkable, isn't it?
Yes.
And so from then on to the Ministry of Trade and Industry?
Yes, then in 1985.
Right.
What happened was, His Majesty visited Delhi for Mrs. Indira Gandhi's funeral.
Right.
I was in Delhi as the ambassador when Mrs. Indira Gandhi was unfortunately assassinated. And I had to report to Thimphu. There were no phones, remember that?
Indeed, I remember
phones,
well,
nothing.
yes.
So I had to report to my foreign minister, Lyonpo, over wireless, saying Mrs. Indira Gandhi assassinated. What a thing. And then I went to attend to pay my respects there. And then after that, His Majesty came to attend the funeral in Delhi. Then after that, His Majesty was kind enough to tell me, now you report back to Thimphu. Okay, so after that, I reported back to Thimphu, and I think on 30th of December or something like that, I reported back to him. He said, next day, go and take charge of the Ministry of Trade and Industry.
Right.
So I took charge of Ministry.
So you inherited the role of HRH?
Not immediately. I was, when I took over the Trade Ministry in 1985, I was the Deputy Minister.
Right.
I was just a deputy. I was not a minister.
And so Parapenlop was the minister.
No, Parapanlop was not there. Parapanlop had already moved over to the Home Ministry.
Right.
So there was no minister. Lyonpo Tsengkhap
right.
was looking after until I took over,
Right.
Then Lyonpo Tsengkhap moved over to agriculture and I took over the trade ministry. But I was deputy minister. I didn't have a minister.
Yeah.
So I was deputy minister from 1985 to 1989 when I became the minister, when His Majesty appointed me as the minister, yes.
So there was no business of elections and which political party you belonged to.
No. I was just purely a servant of His Majesty, that's all.
What was the industrial and economic situation of Bhutan in those days when you became the minister?
Well, before that, actually the ball was set rolling by His Royal Highness Parapanlop. When I joined the ministry in 1969, there was practically nothing.
Right.
We didn't have a budget, we didn't have anything. Then what happened was we made a program. His Royal Highness even got a industrial advisor from India, Mr. L.M. Menezes. He was a Goan, wonderful man. He came there, he prepared the first industrial plan, which included the emporium, the emporium.
Yeah, the handicrafts emporium.
Handicrafts emporium. Right. Then the weaving centers in Tashigang, Tongsa, the bamboo weaving center in Joga in Shamgang, then woodworking center in Paro Wuchu, woodworking center, making all these bowls and all this. He's there. And we made a budget. And His Royal Highness accompanied him to Delhi to discuss with the government of India on how we should do this. So ultimately, I remember, we got a budget of 65 lakhs or something like that and came here. And out of that, about 5 lakhs was set aside to give it to small private entrepreneurs.
Right.
Okay. So what were these small private entrepreneurs? So these private entrepreneurs were running like mills, rice mills, or even this to mill flour.
Right.
Small loans were given, 5,000, 10,000, etc. And people may not realize, but people like all this in Punsoling, all those small industries, the first loans were given by us.
Right.
For the steel industry, for we had one for this making jari, and all the small, making candlesticks, etc. All the small was given by His Royal Highness.
I seem to remember matchsticks.
Matchsticks in
the match factory.
Match factory, which burnt other people rather. It was in Gelefu, yes. And then match factory, all these sawmills, etc. So the first private sector was started like that.
It was the beginnings, yes.
And His Royal Highness, was he established a loan committee, and later on, all these actually were written off. But it laid some sort of a
foundation,
some sort of a base,
yes.
And all these people came up. The steel factory, and this, all these factories in Punsoli, the base was there at that time. The seeds were sown at that time.
Right.
And then subsequently, we found out that we couldn't move ahead much. So His Majesty the Fourth King started a scheme called the 80-20. 80-20. 80, that means 80% of any major industry would be owned by the government, would be invested by the government, and 20% would be by the private sector. But the private sector would have the hand in running these industries. Otherwise, there was no way in which the private sector could find the investments.
So this was the beginnings of PFI, private
yes.
finance.
Yes.
What's it called? something finance initiative.
Public-private
Public-private partnerships.
initiative,
That's
yes.
right.
So this was how and this was also a way out to involve the private sector, a way out to establish big industries.
Right.
Okay. So you had the calcium carbide unit, you had the Gedu Woodwork Center, you had the plywood and other industries, set up on this basis, and that's how they have come up.
Right.
Including the
Was mining included as well, or not?
Mining was indirectly included in the sense that all these industries required mines, like cement required mining, limestone, etc. And of course, earlier to that, under Paro Penlop's guidance, we had set up the Pendant Cement Project. We had started the Dungsam Cement Project. That took a long time to get off the ground. So all these small industries were started. And we, under Paro Penlop's guidance, actually, we were able to do a lot of investigation on the mineral resources of Bhutan.
Right.
The mineral resources of Bhutan. And that is how you found the limestone, dolomite, graphite, all these minerals were found, lead and zinc and all this. And then on the basis of that, we started trying to find out what industries could be set up. Okay, so this ball was set rolling by His Royal Highness, yes.
Right, right. And then, after being minister, Tengge Limpo, I think you then became the first head of DHI.
No, I did not become first. Not at that time.
So
what happened is, you see, in 1998, His Majesty took the decision to abolish the old cabinet.
Indeed, I recall that well, yes.
Abolish the old cabinet and to start this election of ministers in the National Assembly.
Right.
Okay. So this was started. So
the beginnings of democracy.
The beginnings of democracy. Step forward, actually, in democracy. So, in other words, there was no cabinet. So we were not anymore in the cabinet.
So you were one of the ministers.
I was one of them.
At that
so
iconic
Lyonpo
meeting.
myself, Lyonpo, all of us.
Yes, it was rather a shock. I understand.
So we were all sort of suddenly out of our jobs.
That's right. Yes.
So after that, I was, we were very supportive. As we discussed, Lyonpo and myself, we are very supportive of whatever His Majesty does. And it is our responsibility to ensure that everything goes smoothly. So we have no complaints.
That's right.
So then I was, of course, sitting in my house. Then suddenly the government told me, go back to New York.
Oh, right.
Go to New York, as thing. So, and I think that was one of the most fortunate postings ever for me. So I went back to New York. I was
as a permanent representative.
As permanent representative. But there was another angle to it, because His present Majesty was studying in, all the princesses were studying
abroad in America,
royal family. So it was my great privilege to be able to serve in whatever way I could.
Right.
Okay,
the new generation.
Yeah, I used to accompany. I used to go to their colleges, attend their graduations, and do whatever I could, to serve there.
Right.
So this was my great privilege. So all the 4 Ajis were there. His Royal Highness was there. That His Majesty was Crown Prince, so he
that's
was
right. Yes.
So I was there, and so this was very fortunate. Then after that, they extended my term here, but then once my term was ended, the elected government. Elected government was means elected in the assembly.
Right.
There was
Right.
no political parties.
Right.
So they told me that now, your term is over. So, but then I asked the then Prime Minister, Lyonpo, I said, what do I do if I come
This
back
was
to
Jimmy
Bhutan?
Tinley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, what do I do? He said, well, I really don't know. I said, you can't make me a minister because ministers are elected.
Elected. Yes.
So what do I do? So I was in a dilemma,
Right.
So since I was in a dilemma, and then I had a problem. My son was in college in Canada, partially paid, by scholarship. Then my other son was in Scarsdale High School in New York. Then, so I was wondering, if I go back, what do I do?
Right.
So I decided to see if I could join the UN. United
As a UN employee.
Yes.
Right.
So I moved the UN, and they said, yes, we can give you at least a temporary job to begin with. But then I had to take permission from His Majesty. You see.
Right.
So then I was also very lucky. Then, Her Majesty Ajidojom
Yes.
had come to New York, and I had accompanied Ashi to Stanford University because the princesses were graduating. Yeah. So from there, I requested Her Majesty that if I could quickly go to Thimphu, meet His Majesty, you see. So I was given that permission. So I flew from Los Angeles all the way to Thimphu. Reported here, requested Dasho Wangshen for an audience with His Majesty. And His Majesty was kind enough to give me an audience. So I requested His Majesty, posed all my problems about my son being there. So he said, okay, join. I was given permission to join for some time.
Right.
So then I went back, joined the UN.
In what role?
I was, first I got a D1 position, which is a director's position. And I looked after the landlocked countries, least developed countries, and island developing countries. Right, these three,
Yes.
And this was my first experience with island developing countries.
Which is very different from Bhutan.
Least developed, yeah. But I served as the key official of the UN in the island developing countries.
Right.
I organized the international conference in Mauritius.
Right.
Okay, on island developing countries, and I enjoyed working for them, actually. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed. And so I was there and, merrily living in New York. Then after 4 years, one day I got a call from His Majesty. Fifth Druk Gelpo. His Majesty called me, and His Majesty said that consider this issue. Next day, we will contact you. So then next day, we contact me. He said, well, be in Thimphu in 1 month.
Right.
So I had to go to I had to resign from the UN.
Right.
And resignation in the UN is not just simple resignation. It's a contract.
That's right.
I've signed a contract. So the Bhutanese ambassador there, Ambassador Daobenjo, he wrote to the Secretary General saying that he has been summoned by the head of state. So that UN respects.
Right.
They respect. So I severed myself from the UN.
Right.
And reported to Thimphu and called on His Majesty. His Majesty told me to organize the DHI.
Right. So this was the very beginnings of DHI.
Yeah, this is the first. When I came here, there was no office.
Right.
They gave me a broken down car. Karma Yuntin was there. Karma Yuntin and Dambar and all, they had already been appointed.
Right.
In the DHI, but there was nothing else.
Right.
So then my first task was to go and find the office for DHI.
Right.
So I found the most, most useful would be the Dasho Tseong had a house there.
Right.
The first DHI office.
Yes.
So since he was part of DHI, he was in the power department. So I told him, Dasho, please move out. The office is going to be here. So he had to move out.
And that became the head office.
That became the office, yeah.
Yes,
DHI.
yes.
So that's how it is. And I served in the DHI for 2 terms, 6 years or something.
Right.
And 2014, I really retired, I would say.
Genuinely.
Genuinely retired, yeah.
And I bet you anything you've been just as busy post-retirement.
No, post-retirement, firstly, I found out that I could keep myself busy in many ways. Firstly, I read a lot. I tried writing, though.
Well, I was just going to say, Lyonpo,
Not
you
very
wrote a book.
Yeah.
Can we have a little look at your book?
Yes,
Which-
I think you'll have to
We don't need to open it, but
Yeah.
The Roar of the Thunder Dragon is a
Yes.
rather dramatic title.
Yes.
And I'm pleased to say I have a copy of your book at home. But there's something very funny about this book.
Yes.
Because you can also buy it in Chinese.
No, yes, they wanted to translate it into Chinese, so they
Right.
asked me permission. I said, "Please go ahead, no problem."
So-
So this is they gave me a copy. I have no idea what is written,
What it says.
except my name is here. That's all. Yeah,
So-
it's in Mandarin in China.
So in Mandarin and in English,
Yes,
The Roar of the Thunder Dragon.
yes,
And so then you retired from DHI,
yes,
have a leisurely life in this rather lovely spot.
yes.
Above
I've been
Dantak.
very lucky throughout my life.
Yes.
I mean, this land which you see here in Simtoha, this was also given to me during the Third King's time.
Right.
And Porpelop himself issued the orders for me. So this land was given to me, and fortunate, you see. And now I share it with the rest of my family.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
So Lyonpo, as Minister of Trade and Industry,
yes.
you were probably involved quite a lot in dealing with negotiations with India on the various projects. Can you say a word about that?
No, as you know, India is our closest
Indeed.
neighbor, and the maximum aid and assistance to Bhutan's development activities right from the beginning has been from the government of India.
Right.
So most of the projects that we started in the Ministry of Trade and Industries had to somehow do with the government of India,
Right.
because the financing would have to come from them, the technical assistance would have to come from them, the project reports, etc., had to be done by their agencies, and then all in all, we had to get a lot of expertise from India.
Right.
Manpower, for instance, both labor as well as technical manpower. And in the beginning, even managing the projects was from India. We had to get officials from there. So we had a lot of dealings with India. In fact,
Right.
the main country with whom we really dealt with on all
Was-
this
was
issue was
India,
India.
yes.
Yes. There were a few exceptions, but it was basically with
One
India.
exception being the
Few
first
exceptions-
Basochu,
No,
which
no.
was
One was
Austria.
Basochu project, and then the Germans assisted us with preparing reports on possible hydroelectric projects in Bhutan,
right.
and the Japanese were involved with setting up small hydroelectric projects
Right.
within the country. So in that way, these were the exceptions. Otherwise, when it came to trade and industries, we had to deal with India in every front.
Right.
And I was privileged to have dealt with the government of India almost even before I became minister, since from 1969, till I left DHI, let's
Right,
put it that way.
right.
So we dealt with a lot of issues with the government of India.
So some of the projects that you were involved in?
Yeah. The first project I would say was the Pendant Cement project.
Right.
That was, of course, initiated by His Royal Highness, and I was involved with it both as a secretary to the government as well as the minister subsequently.
Right.
Then came the Dusam Cement project,
Right.
which had a lot of obstacles to cross, but ultimately it came into being.
Right.
And then we had other hydroelectric projects. The government of India was mainly involved with the major hydroelectric projects. Chuka was the first one, as you know.
Yes.
And that was already established when I became the minister. It was already established and generating a lot of revenue. The surplus power is sold to India. So what power cannot be consumed within Bhutan had to be sold to India. Otherwise, there was no other source to sell it.
No,
Yes.
indeed.
So that was one. Then the other one was Tala project, which the agreement I was involved in negotiating with the advice and guidance given to me by the cabinet. So we negotiated that agreement, got it through. I was chairman of the Tala project, and we implemented the project, completed it, and then came the Kurichu hydroelectric project, which was a major project in itself. And here I must say that the government of India was very generous. There were a lot of problems on the economics of the project, but Bhutan still wanted it because it was the first hydroelectric project in the eastern region of the country. And since transmission lines were not there, we had to have a project there itself. And it contributed greatly to the development of the eastern region of Bhutan. Of course, now it is connected with the grid.
A lot.
Yes. Then that was followed, of course, after that. Initially, I was involved here and there in the Mangdechu project, but then I left. I left the ministry, and I went to New York. So
during that time, you were deeply involved in some of our most significant projects in Bhutan.
Yes.
Which is an amazing history to have, isn't it?
Yes. But, my task was, in a way, very easy, in the sense that the guidelines given to me by the government were very clear.
Right.
And because of the friendship between the two countries, most of our requests, government of India would accept.
Yes.
And so it was very easy to negotiate with them, with the Indian team. And I must take this opportunity to really thank them.
Right, good.
For all that they did in helping us, including the trade and transit.
Right.
The trade and transit comes from the trade agreement of Bhutan. And I think that at least until now, we had very little problems in dealing with trade and transit.
Right.
And even the first delegation that Bhutan sent to independent Bangladesh was headed by me. First delegation.
Right. So that's another one of your...
Yes, and at that time, immediately, I had met President Ziaur Rahman, and immediately he gave instructions that whatever Bhutan wants, we can give it to them. And we negotiated a trade agreement, but we couldn't sign it until long after I left the ministry. But they offered, free port facilities and facilities to have stores, etc. And I think that it reflected the relations between the two countries.
Right.
And you see, ultimately, we wanted to use Indian territory to get into Bangladesh and use the ports of Bangladesh.
That's
Chalna,
right, yes.
And I went to those ports to see if it's possible. So, if we want to export goods or import goods, we can use the ports of Bangladesh and use the Indian, there's an Indian territory here to come in. So these have all been negotiated.
Right.
In fact, I was trying to, with the help of UNDP, I was also trying to make use of the Brahmaputra River, from Dhubri, Brahmaputra River. And we thought that we could transport goods.
Indeed, a very good way of transporting goods.
Yes, in fact, I had requested the UNDP to give me a barge, so that we could fly the Bhutan flag. And
Right.
So
a royal barge.
But unfortunately, I left the ministry, and as the UNDP report put it, Bhutan missed the boat.
Which is a wonderful way of putting it.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Bhutan missed the boat. So, but it's still possible. You
Yes.
can transport boulders. From Gelefu side, you need not go to Dhubri. You can come up a little bit on the Brahmaputra River and use the river. You can make the river navigable.
It's also a more environmentally friendly way of transportation than
In
road.
fact, if you do it properly, you could almost overcome the handicaps of being landlocked
Right.
by this and by the Torsa, this other river here, where we are going to put up a major hydroelectric project. But you can make it navigable. It can go up to, on the Indian side.
Yes. Yes.
And go to the Bay of Bengal, actually. You can go. But then you have to be more imaginative.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, most grateful to Lyonpo Om Pradhan for a most interesting podcast, which goes back even to the days of Lyonpo's late father. And it's a great privilege to be able to talk to some of the people who have helped the third king, the fourth king, and the fifth king in the development of Bhutan, which has been quite remarkable. In 50 years, Bhutan has developed almost as much as other countries in 500 years. And it's important we recognize all the people who helped our monarchs to build Bhutan.